Hello everyone, this is part 3 of What If Deku Married Ibara, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Izuku smiled like a school kid when his phone rang, and he saw her name appear. He excused himself to take the call as Eri teased him that his girlfriend was calling. Is it wrong of me to say that I miss you? Even though I just saw you at lunch, he said. No, would you think less of me if I said the same thing? Ibara responded. He could almost hear the blush in her voice. Then when can I see you again? That is, in part, what I am calling to talk to you about. Only part. She could hear the smile in his voice. Honestly, yes, I want to hear your voice, he smiled now. I know this may be sudden, but I was wondering if you would like to meet my parents. They are in town, a bit of a surprise, and it told them about you. What did you tell them about me? He responded. The truth is I am quite taken with you, Mr. Midoriya. You have enchanted my mind and dazzled my senses. You forgave my mistake, and you have opened my eyes to a future that I once believed to be forever closed. Her voice was soft, like a lover whispering into his ear. You can't tell me that and tell me your parents are here, he replied, his heart pounding. It makes me want to run to you and take you in my arms. What would you do once I was in your arms? Kiss you till you understand your power over me. That could be dangerous. You make me forget myself when you kiss me. Her voice had changed. It was a bit deeper now, and it had a sultry undertone that was doing things to him. In fact, you have dominated my mind all day, invaded my thoughts. There is an emptiness, and I know that it is the fact that I am not near you. Ibara, he whispered her name. It was almost a wish, a plea to her. It tugged at her body and her heart. Meet me at my office in 20 minutes, she responded. We may not have the night, but I need to fill this ache and soothe myself with your kiss. I will be there, he said as the call ended. He walked back in and kissed Eri and his mother on the forehead as they watched a show. I have to run out for a bit. Don't stay up too late, Eri. Ooh. Eri said. Dad got a booty call. Eri, Inko said, smiling. Use protection, son. Mother, Eri. He blushed, unable to appropriately respond, so he did what all great people do when faced with such a situation. He sputtered, and then he fled. The office. She was waiting outside for him. She took his hand wordlessly and led him in through the employee entrance. Neither dared to speak as they rode up the elevator. The tension built and threatened to explode. The doors opened again, and she tugged him along to her office. The door opened, and once inside, she turned and closed it quietly, locking it. When she turned, he was there, his lips meeting hers. He had her pinned against the door as their passion exploded. With a tangle of hands and grabbing at each other, everything was lost in a haze of passion. Her leg was around his hips, and he held her hands above her head. She turned and bared her neck to him, which he hungrily took. Ibara felt herself surrendering. This pose had been one that she would have never admitted to have been a fantasy of hers, and he was fulfilling it unprompted. Freeing one hand, it trailed down her side, which, along with the attention he paid to her neck, made her shudder. When his hand grabbed her ass, she let loose a surprised eep that he silenced with his lips. She freed herself from his and pulled him to the couch where she straddled his lap, and when she ran her hands through his hair, she felt the shudder of pleasure run through his body. Her friends told stories, many stories. Ibara would listen and chastise them, but the key was that she listened. Her fingers tangled more in his hair, and his moan of her name told her she was on the right track. She tightened her grip and pulled his head gently to the side. It was her turn to attack his neck. His moans and calls of her name encouraged her on and on. She could feel him hardening against her as her own body was reacting to the most intense things that had happened in her life. When she pulled back and they locked eyes, she knew it right then. She wanted all of him. She tried to give herself to him, to surrender to him and let him take her. Everything with him would be a first. This was a first. The desires he sparked inside of her, the way he made her feel, the thoughts that came to mind. The talk that her mother had given her, how inflamed her mind with the things they could do together. How she knew when he came to meet her tonight, It wasn't to drink coffee or have a meaningful conversation, it was for pleasure. She wanted to feel pleasure, give pleasure, and it had to be him. No one else would do. Comfort, how far could she go? She knew what her body wanted. He was surprised when her hands went to his belt, she undid his pants, and he felt her tremble as she touched him over his boxes. We can stop, he whispered. I know, she replied. But I want to do this much. She freed his aching member and lightly began to stroke it. His shudder told her she was on the right track. She kissed him as she put both hands to work. Her friend's stories made her blush, but again, she listened. She lost herself in his lips and felt him pulsing in her hands. She moaned when she felt his hand slide down in between her legs and press along the outside of her pants. Her eyes opened wide to find him staring at her. She bit her lip and nodded. He went to the waist, and again, she consented. She stood up, not taking her hands off him. Her vines helped her wiggle free of her jeans. For a brief moment, she was worried about her underwear, which she had never been concerned about. But they were simple ruby red silk. They matched her bra. A thought danced across her mind that she would have to invest in some more sexy things. It tempted to distract her till she was on her back on his lap, and his fingers found their way along the line of her sex. Her hands continued to use the corkscrew around his impressive member if the stories Ibara had heard were to be believed. It was so hot as she continued to try and bring him release. She felt the fabric of her panties move to the side as he was now touching her directly. His touch was delicate as he ran his fingers along it. Finding the hood, he began to return the pleasure. She could feel her wetness, and when he started to rub her clitoris, all thoughts left quickly. No one or anything other than the showerhead and herself had ever touched that part, and her touching had been so rare until earlier today when she had left his place. She felt his finger at her entrance. She opened her eyes and nodded at him. As his fingers slipped inside of her, she shuddered in pleasure, nearly reaching orgasm just from that. Nothing had been inside her before. He felt how tight and wet she was. It coiled around his finger, and he was surprised when she started rocking her hips. Her call to him for more was all he needed. He slowly moved his finger in and out, her moans filling the room. She didn't stop working on him. Soon, his moans were with hers. Their hands mimicked each other. It was simulated sex. She kissed him deeply, their eyes opened, and they stared at each other. I am about to, she moaned. Are you there? Almost, faster, he responded. Together, with me, come with me, Izuku, she pleaded in his ear. I want, the first, to be together. She whispered his name over and over as her hips moved faster, matching the pace her hands were setting. He could hear her getting closer with every call of his name. As he echoed her call, it was becoming on both sides. Her whispers got louder when she heard his voice call to her out loud. The pitch told her what she needed, and she felt it in her hands as it tensed. Once it did that, the orgasm she had been desperately holding back broke free. She screamed his name, and she felt him release in her hands. He was still hard in her hands, she still ached. She knew all she had to do was raise and shift her hips forward, and he would be at her entrance. Can this be enough? She whispered. Your kiss would have been enough, Ibara, he responded. This is just beyond my imagining. She kissed him tenderly, getting to her feet. She blushed when she saw him looking at her dripping sex. Her vines grabbed her pants as she adjusted her underwear. I am going to get cleaned up. She scampered to the bathroom. Once inside, she blushed and was flustered. Her hands were covered in his seed, a man's seed, Izuku's seed. It had a very distinct odor. She stared at it before bringing it to her lips. It was salty and a bit bitter but not unpleasant. She then went nuclear as the dawning realization of what she had just done flooded her mind. She went to the sink and washed her hands, proceeding to get cleaned up. All the while, her mind kept suggesting other things they could do. Once she exited, he stepped in. She had cleaned up the best he could, and she felt she could still smell their activities in the air. It made her blush again. They were silent as they left, their fingers intertwined. He drove her home outside her building. Before he could exit to open her door, she pulled him into a kiss that made his toes curl. He walked her to the door, both feeling giddy. We may have gotten sidetracked this evening, she whispered. I believe we did. He squeezed her hand. I didn't mind. I would like to get sidetracked with you again. IZUKU. She said, a little shocked as she playfully hit him with her other hand. Dinner. Would you have dinner with me and my parents? I want 'em to meet you and Eri and Inko. When and where? He said. I will text you, she said, turning and kissing him chastely, as she didn't trust herself with anything more. Ibara awoke with a lightness in her heart and a mission on her mind. Muz Hina Hiro. She emerged from her room, kissed her father on the cheek as he was working remotely, and with a grateful smile, took the lunch her mother had packed and the breakfast sandwich in exchange for a kiss on her cheeks before she headed out the door. She may have overslept due to being a little late from her late-night rendezvous with Izuku. In the elevator, her mind wandered to having woken up with him, stealing more than a kiss, and she ran out for the day. Or of walking Eri to school, getting to know the young woman better, after they all sat down for breakfast made by a smiling Inko. The daydreams were happy and comforting, unlike the month of misery she had put her and Izuku through because of one Hina Hiro. This woman either wanted to drive Izuku so far into the ground that she could slither her way back into life or manipulate him. Or did she want to make him live in misery and loneliness like her? Both options were not something Ibara could live with, and the fact that she had nearly succeeded in making Ibara doubt herself instead of having faith or of being an actual adult and talking to him. Instead, self-doubt, guilt, and some other things had reared their head, and she withdrew. Yes, she had stumbled, but Hina Hiro would not get away with what she had done. Her parents would be gone in a few days, and then she would deal with Muz Hiro. When she entered her office, she looked at the couch and blushed before she put her lunch away and went to get changed for her return to patrol. Izuku. I am glad she came to her damn senses. As am I, Mei, Izuku said as he placed her order on the counter. You look good, it seems you and Itsuka are happy. Mei blushed. Oh yay, she is kinky, horny, and kind. She paused. I think I am in love. Izuku smiled at her. That's wonderful, Mei, I am so happy for you. He came around the counter and hugged his friend. I am so happy for you, Mei. Hey, I know this is weird, but I want to keep getting better, Mei smiled. I want my own shop. Maybe she can have an agency on the top, we can live in the middle part, and I want to have a baby of my own. Mei looked up at him before snuggling back in. I see you and Eri and want to have that. A little one that loves me for me, and maybe one I can teach how to build things, or I can watch learn to ride a bike with Itsu. Wow, Mei, that is wonderful. Itsuka kissed the top of her head. Mei steadied her nerves and dragged him to his office, suddenly closing the door. Mei, is everything okay? Izuku, if I get that far, will you be my baby daddy? Mei said, her eyes shut. I love you. You have always been so great to me, and you are the one guy the first would have seen if we could make work. I think you are. If Itsuka could do it, I would happily have her kid and girl parts. So the only other person I could even think of is you. Izuku was stunned. Mei, I don't know what to say. I would say yes right now, but I am with Ibara, and that is something I need to talk to her about before I make that kind of decision. What if the child is quirkless, you know, like me? Your quirklessness never bothered me, Mei stared at him. You are worth more than some of those lugnut heroes I have watched graduate and worked with. You fight with your heart and everything you have, you leave it all on the table. If our hypothetical baby has half your heart and half my stubbornness, quirk or not, the world will not know what hit it. Does that mean I get to be an uncle? He smirked. Hell yeah, I need someone to make sure this kid has some sort of common sense, Mei said with a fist pump. I will talk to Ibara, and we can talk more about it when the time comes, he responded. Thank you, Izuku, Mei said, hugging him again, her watch beeping. I must go or be late, love ya. Love you too. And she was outside the door. He shook his head and walked back onto the bakery floor. The next night, he was meeting the parents, and after that, it was time to deal with Hina. She had almost cost him something that seemed on the verge of being excellent. And he wasn't about to let that go. Mei skipped down the sidewalk, ready to take on the world, well, in her unique way. She wanted to share her dream with Itsuka. It would break her heart if Itsu weren't interested, but that wouldn't stop her. Her shop and family, Mei Hatsume, would turn the page of her life. She hoped the girl she loved wanted to help her write the chapter. He and Ibara didn't see each other that day, though they did a video call that night while they lay in bed. They just talked about the days and nonsense, getting to know each other better, Plans were set for the next night when he would meet her parents. Meet the parents. Sinaru found her daughter's nervousness cute. She watched as she fidgeted a bit in the back seat of the rental car as they drove to the restaurant. Shinko was hoping that maybe they employed two Izukus at higher grounds. But Ibara dashed those hopes when she showed him a photo of them on the date at the Arboretum. Sinaru was eager to hear more about the dates and details as he pouted. Shinko was a bit worried the next day when he reached out to have Izuku's name run, and it came back blank. His head of security then received a call from the Hero Alliance. He had relayed that to Sinaru, who was a little upset that he would run the boy before they even met him but proud at the same time. Neither of them mentioned this to Ibara, worried it might upset her. They arrived at the hotel where the restaurant was located. Ibara smiled when they saw that Izuku had just arrived himself. She steadied herself as they exited the vehicle. She was so nervous, she wanted him to like him as much as she did. Also, because Eri would be here, she hoped they would make a good impression on the young woman as she was crucial to Izuku. Her phone buzzed. They were just outside the restaurant. When the elevator doors opened, her heart fluttered at seeing him standing in a suite. He wore a black suit with a red shirt and black tie, gold cufflinks, and a tie pin cut like a rose with thorns. Eri was wearing a red dress with a black shawl over her shoulders. Ibara smiled, noticing a hint of makeup on the young woman. Her hair had beautiful loose curls that hung down, and a black headband held everything in place. She noticed it had a gold rose as well. Ibara was wearing a dark green dress just below her knees, black Spartan sandals that wrapped up her legs, and some simple gold jewelry. Her mother and father were in the back with green accents. As they emerged, she watched as Eri approached with Izuku right behind her. Eri bowed to them, then turned to Sinaru and held out a bouquet of beautiful lilies and snapdragons in love, deep pink and purple hues. It is a great honor to meet you. I hope these flowers are to your liking, Eri said, holding out the flowers. Sinaru smiled and took them graciously. Ibara smiled as Izuku held out a bouquet of red roses. These are for you, Ibara, he said, his eyes twinkling as he looked at her. You look beautiful tonight. He turned and bowed to her parents. It is a great honor to meet you both. Thank you for inviting my daughter and me to dine with you this evening. The pleasure is ours, Shinko said, bowing slightly. It is nice to meet you again. That is, sir, Izuku replied. I had no idea of your relation to Ibara, but I must confess that I am glad we met. Why is that? Shinko said. Then we could meet without pretense and as two fathers of two beautiful daughters, Izuku said, straightening up. Our words were honest and without deception. Well said, Shinko replied. I hope then that tonight we can speak the same, with honesty and without deception. You look very pretty tonight, Eri, Ibara said, smiling. Eri, this is my mother Sinaru. It is a pleasure to meet you, Mom, Eri told Sinaru. Also, it is nice to see you again, Ibara. These flowers are charming. Did your father pick them? Sinaru asked the young woman. He chose the snapdragons. I chose the lilies, Eri replied as they began to move to the restaurant. Ibara could see that Eri was nervous. Ibara lightly brushed her hand against her arm, getting the girl's attention. Ibara smiled warmly, trying to reassure her. Eri returned the smile warmly. Sinaru saw the whole exchange, but she was able to hide her smile. Shinko approved how Izuku first sat his daughter, then Ibara. They all took their seat, looking over the menu. I believe that we should just get this all out of the way. I us to relax and enjoy this meal, Shinko said, setting his menu down. What are your intentions towards my daughter? I believe there is something special here, he said as he reached under the table to take Ibara's hand. Something very special that I can't explain. He looked over at Ibara for a moment before continuing. I am falling in love with her. She brings to life dreams I thought were long gone of finding a partner, a wife, and a mother for Eri. I intend to do everything I can to make her happy so that she falls in love with me and one day agrees to be my wife. How would you provide for her? My business is profitable, we own the building. There is an extra room in my house for should my wishes come true we have room for a child. That is all without her income from heroics. I have retirement set aside as well as a college fund for Eri. I would never ask her to pay for Eri's schooling. Izuku still held Ibara's hand. How do you feel about her being a hero, the spotlight that it would bring? It doesn't bother me. It wasn't Vine who captured my heart, it is Ibara. I understand what her and her classmates suffered through, of what they sacrificed for this country. I respect that and honor that. I want to be her partner, support, and care for the woman and the hero. In whatever aspect that may be. Love and support her through this life with all that I have. Izuku spoke with tenderness and a clarity that Shinko appreciated. What about your daughter and mother? He said, wanting to probe more. My daughter comes first, he took Eri's hand. She is my world, a sentiment that you understand. My mother is just below that for all she has done for me and the continued support she gives. Ibara knows this. How do you feel about all this, Eri? Shinoru said, looking at the young woman. I hope that it works out, she replied. My father saved me. He saved me in every way. He was there when I cried, rebelled, faltered, stumbled, and fell through it all. He chased my monsters away by taking them onto himself. He sacrificed for me, my grandmother sacrificed for me, and I learned that family is not born of blood. I love my father wholeheartedly and want nothing more for him to be happy. She squeezed Izuku's hand. I don't know Ibara yet. I look forward to that change. It is all I ask for as long as she treats him right. Family fights harder for family even harder than we fight for ourselves. Eri turned and looked at Ibara. I would love to call you family. I hope to be worthy of it, Ibara replied. Shinoru looked at Shinko and smiled. Izuku, please do your best to keep making my daughter happy. Hearing your words, and seeing the passion upon which your own daughter speaks, I am happy to know the one that has made my Ibara's eyes sparkle so brightly after so long. He turned to Eri and smiled. My hope is that my wife and I can also earn a chance to be part of your family, as well. Order anything you like, my wife and I would like to pay for dinner tonight as a symbol of our blessing. With that the dinner proceeded, soon the atmosphere relaxed as Shinko's demeanor did. It was a nice meeting with the two men talking about various things including life. Shinko was determined to get to know Izuku. Shinoru was talking with Eri and watching her daughter's interaction with girl. She could see that both were determined to make the relationship work. It made Shinoru smile. She was slowly getting swept away by Eri's infectious smile and nature. Eri spoke of a possible future in heroics but more focused on healing, similar to Recovery Girl. She had even met the heroine shortly after coming to live with her family. They had stayed in touch over the years. Once Eri demonstrated her quirk on a small piece of bread for her, the woman was stunned. Shinko, after hearing of the failed date, their first encounter and Izuku's lack of quirk, by the end of the night the man was happily calling him son, much to Ibara's and his wife's embarrassment. He shrugged it off, his smile fading, then the bowed to Izuku. Thank you for saving my daughter, he said. I know that you are the type of person who will do everything he can for those he loves and cares about. I cannot think of anyone else to be a more fitting partner for her. Please take care of my precious Ibara. I swear that I will endeavor to make her happy for as long as she allows me to be by her side, he replied, bowing back to the man. The ladies smiled at the men, before each took their hands. Enough, dear, Shinoru teased. You're embarrassing her. Izuku, Ibara said, smiling at him, her eyes twinkling. If you keep weaving such spells, I will find myself so in love with you that anything else will become a chore. Then I can't stop, Izuku replied, slowly losing himself in her gaze. It was the snap of a picture and a laugh from Eri that made them come back to reality, blushing. Smooth dad, she said with a smirk. I didn't know my daughter was such a romantic, Shinoru said, holding her hand to her cheek. It reminds me of how her father courted me back in the day. Would you mind sending me that photo, Eri? Not at all. Would you like to exchange contact information? Eri gave her father a side-eye look. I would be happy to send any other photos I catch or just a simple update on things. Now that would be lovely, Shinoru smirked at her daughter before the two tapped phones together. Izuku was blushing, but he couldn't help but smile. I would like to have you two over for dinner before you leave. My mother would love to meet you both. I have a busy schedule tomorrow, but how about the night after? Ibara said. Your flight isn't until the day after. That sounds lovely, Shinoru replied. What do you think, dear? I would love to meet the woman who raised such a strong young man, he said with a smile. Where would you like to meet? If the two of you wouldn't mind, I would like to cook for you, Izuku said. We can have it at my home, where we can all relax and feel comfortable. Sounds perfect, we will see you then. Shinko liked that he held the car door open for Ibara as he was doing the same thing for his wife. The couple settled for a chaste kiss. They both knew they longed for more. I like her, Eri said. She owned up to her mistake. Izuku wrapped his arm around her shoulders. I like her too, he replied. Now let's talk about the phone call I got about you missing class that afternoon. Father, the sacrifices had to be made for the greater good, Eri said sweetly. I trust that will be taken into consideration when my punishment is handed down. I mean, after I did save your relationship. Oh, you did you? He laughed, as he kissed the top of her head. You have to work the cafe this weekend. Fine price to pay, Eri said, giving him a side hug. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Eri. Dad, I know that it isn't my business, but Hina, I can't stand what she did and all the other things, Eri said suddenly. It isn't fair. No, sweetie, it isn't, he replied. And I am going to make a call tomorrow, so let us just enjoy the night. That night, once her parents were in bed, Ibara went to her office to make a phone call. It was a little known fact that there were two people that you didn't want to piss off. Everyone in her graduating class knew, and they even went out of their way to do so. Momo Yaoyorozu and Setsuna Tokage. With Momo, it reared its head during the war, the loss of classmates and friends, the devastation that rocked the country, and the near death of her parents when a villain went after them to get to her. After that, woe, be the one that earned her ire, especially if someone wronged her friends or hurt them. Setsuna was always there, just below the surface of her playful, teasing demeanor. Just below the surface, she rarely brought it up, but when she did, it was a tornado of anger she brought with it. Ibara had almost fallen for a boy with pretty words and an agenda who had told her everything she wanted at the time. When his masquerade was revealed, not only had he dropped out of school, but he had moved out of the country because of Set. Both girls were surprised by the video call. Momo excused herself from her husband, and Ibara apologized for disturbing her home time. Momo smiled. Ibara, it has to be important for you to call now. Besides, he is going to be home for a week. Momo knew something was amiss, but she knew something was wrong when Set came on the line. Oh shit, this just got real, Set said with a smirk. Let me get to my office. I am sorry to bother both of you, but I need your guys' help, Ibara said. Ibara then explained what had happened in her office when Hina Hiro came to see her. Isn't that the person who launched that investigation into May? Set said. Momo nodded. Sue had said she bumped into a young man, but then she was pulled onto assignment for the Hero Commission. She never got a chance to pursue it, Momo added. I believe she said something about green hair and freckles. If it was the same boy, I hope she forgives me. Ibara said. I wouldn't worry about it. Sue just thought he was cute, Momo said. So Mushiro was once involved with Mr. Midoriya until Eri came into his life. She tried to make him give her up, and he rejected her. Then, she went out of her way to ensure he was alone. She tries to destroy May's career even though they are just friends and have been friends for a long time. So, she is insecure. Is he flirtatious? No, not that I have seen, Ibara said. You met him. He was on his best behavior, but that could be because he recognized us, Momo said. I have a friend, I will have her stop by and flirt some, Set said. I am just looking out for you, Ibara. I know, Set, I am not worried at all, Ibara smirked. But I need your help. I can't let what she had done and tried to do stand. Even if this relationship fails, I don't want her interfering with his life. You in love? Set replied with a smirk. Ibara's blush was enough of an answer. Momo smiled. Well, along with her being a piece of shit, we need to go after the misuse of funds and resources, but we need to find out if he is still under active surveillance. A look at his file would help. Set smirked. Whoever would we get to do that? Well, we do know the assistant director of operations. Momo said, looking off to the side. She may murder us if we call her right now. It is date night. Yeah, I did that once. Never again, Set shuddered. Toru can get really scary sometimes. Set smirked at Ibara. So Ibara, is this the one? I think so, Set, Ibara blushed. It is so early, but my heart keeps screaming at me. I miss him a lot and just saw him. I miss kissing him and feeling him by my side. Ibara, Momo teased. Are you getting naughty on us? Ibara blushed and stuttered, causing the two girls to laugh. I hope you both remember to eat your greens, Set said. What does vegetables? Ibara froze and went nuclear red, ending the call. Momo and Set laughed until they cried. Izuku. Hey, do you have a minute? Yeah, I got some time, just waiting on the police to come pick up some low-lives, Katsuki responded. Tell me you didn't get attacked again. How did you know about the villain attacks? Izuku said. I have a person in the Hero Alliance that keeps me informed when shit goes down with you, he replied. You spying on me? Izuku said, shocked. No, they just let me know when your name crosses their desk when I don't know, you get attacked twice by villains, and don't fucking tell me. He yelled. How did you meet them? Izuku asked. I met them at the gathering, Katsuki paused. I don't remember what it was about, but then I ended up working a few cases with them. I think they heard me talking to you when my mom just left the hospital, and you were checking on her for me. We chatted about you, and they offered to keep me informed if your name popped up. Why? Katsuki said he already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. Hina Hiro. Yeah, that's her, and you know her name. I don't like this already, Katsuki said. You remember me telling you about my ex, the girl that wanted me to give up Eri, got all crazy on May. Are you fucking kidding me? Katsuki growled. No. Apparently she went to Vine and showed her pictures from Overhaul, tried to paint me as a psycho, Izuku said. Well, you're a fucking psycho, but in a good way, Katsuki said. Did it work? Almost, but we got it straightened out. This girl is making my life hell. I wonder if she is watching me or what. I am calling in that favor. No, I should have fucking known better, Katsuki said. I don't like being played like a goddamn fiddle. What are you going to do? I know a guy who owes me a favor, Katsuki chuckled. It was time to collect. I will call you later. Once he was done talking to Izuku and the police came to pick up the perps he was babysitting, he pulled out his phone again and dialed. Hello, Hawks. It's time to pay what you owe. Toru groaned as the sound of her alarm went off. As she reached out to shut it off, she lamented having to leave the warm embrace of her lover. Is it that time already? She heard him say. Yes, sadly, she said. I hate that you have to leave. What if I didn't? He responded. Toru turned and looked at her lover, his black hair spilled out over the pillows, two red horns protruding nestled on the specially made pillows, his gorgeous dark red skin softly illuminated by the bedside lamp. Ahmed, she whispered. She loved him, she was deeply in love with her dear American hero. They had met on a joint operation about 2 years ago, and he had just enchanted her. Then he pursued her, and she never felt more alive. The first time they laid together, she had been the culmination of a fantasy for her. But he was an SSS-ranked teleporter whom the American government employed. She had her job at the Hero Commission. Toru Hagakure, he said. She watched as his tails reached into the bedside drawer. Marry me. Her hands flew to her mouth. She watched as his eyes glowed red. She knew he could see her heat signature. But, she protested. I will come live here, he said. I want to be with you. I know how important your work is. They will never let you go. She whispered, looking at the beautiful diamond ring in his hand. I will still have to do work for them, but I can teleport across the globe. There is no reason I can't live here with you besides your government saying so. He raised an eyebrow. Now, if I was to say offer my services to an agency, I wonder if they would support me taking up residence. You would do this for me? Toru asked. I love you, Toru, I love you so much that being away from you is pure misery. He walked around the bed and kneeled in front of her. Marry me, Toru. Yes, Ahmed, yes, she said as she leaned down and kissed him. He removed the ring from the box and slipped it perfectly on her finger before they tumbled back into bed. It was about noon when she awoke the second time, but this was because her phone was ringing. She grabbed her phone, pausing to stare at the ring on her finger. Hello, Momo. Hello, Toru, she heard her friend's voice say hesitantly. Sounds like I woke you. Is this a bad time? No, I am just playing hooky from the office today, Toru responded as she got out of bed. Is everything all right? No, not really. There is a problem, nothing earth-shattering or anything of the sort, but a problem nonetheless, and we need your help. Toru said, slipping on her robe and exiting the room. Well, Ibara does, Momo responded. You know that she has started seeing someone, right? From the group texts, yes, Toru said as she entered the kitchen and set about making a cup of coffee. I thought things had gone well. They had, or they were, Momo said, pausing. They were going great until someone from the commission interfered. That is a serious statement, Momo, Toru said, focusing on the conversation. What did they do? And do you know who did it? Her name is Hina Hiro. She approached Ibara and showed her documents from the overhaul case. Crime scene photos and reports. Those are classified, and why would she do that? Toru said as she rubbed her forehead. The boy Ibara is dating is Izuku Midoriya. Fuck me, Toru muttered. From what we can understand, Moshiro used to be involved with Izuku, and after their relationship ended, she has not quite let it go. We also suspect that she had used commission resources to continue spying on him. But that is just from some statements and the fact that their photos were leaked to gossip magazines. Ibara never makes those magazines, and why would he, as no one knows who he is? Momo paused. I know her, Toru said as she wondered if drinking a beer right now was terrible form. Good investigator, chip on her shoulder, but due to her quirk, I get it. I will look into it. Thank you, Toru, that is all we ask, Momo said. I shall let you go. Oh. And Momo, Toru responded. He asked me to marry him. My goodness, Toru smiled as she heard the excitement in her friend's voice. And I said yes, Toru said, staring down at the ring. I will inform the group and get back to you about Moshiro. Congratulations, Toru, Momo said as she ended the call. Katsuki Bakugo. He stood on the roof of his agency, waiting. He didn't even turn as he felt the rush of wind and someone touched down behind him. Instead, he held up a cup of coffee. Thanks, man, Hawks said, taking the cup. I know you like your morning, Joe, Katsuki said. So you said you want to call in my debt. There is some bitch at the Hero Commission interfering with a friend of mine's life. She is an ex of his and is using commission resources to do it. Katsuki said, turning around. I want you to expose it and ensure it doesn't get swept under the rug. Hawks raised an eyebrow, that's it. Katsuki nodded. Sure. But it seems like a waste of a favor. Not to me, it isn't. I owe this guy a lot more than I could repay in 100 lifetimes, Katsuki replied. I would like to meet this guy sometime, Hawks said, drinking his coffee. She has a name other than some bitch. Hina Hiro. Consider it done, Hawks said, taking to the sky. Ibara. She glided into the office, still smiling from dinner the night before. When the receptionist stopped her and told her that a handsome man with green hair had stopped by and handed her a box of cinnamon rolls and a thermos of tea, it could be said she was over the moon. She entered her office and fired off a quick thank you text before settling in behind her desk to finish some paperwork before going on her patrol. She was surprised when Mount Lady came into her office. Everything okay? Ibara asked, setting her pen down. Yes. Oh my goodness, she said, smelling the cinnamon rolls. May I have one of those? Ibara suppressed her laugh as it looked like she was about to float over on smell like an old cartoon. Ibara smiled and served up a treat for the recently announced pregnant Yu. The other heroes in the office had been told that there would be some schedule changes with her having to take time off from the field. Yu held her cheeks after the first bite and did a little happy dance in the seat. So we got a call from the commission this morning. Ibara immediately wanted to yell, but she stopped herself. What did they want? The agent was just following up on some things. There were a few minor mistakes on some paperwork from our raid of the Dagger House, Yu said, taking another bite. She did ask about you, wanted to make sure you were doing all right. Is everything okay, Ibara? There was that strange incident the other day with that girl who came in, and then you ran out of here. Ibara thought about it for a second. It is now. I had started seeing someone, she began. Yu leaned forward. She loved this kind of talk and felt that Ibara made it special. It has been everything I could dream of, and that woman from the Hero Commission made me falter. She almost made me lose something special. That girl is his daughter. She came to help snap me back to reality, and she did. I ran out of here to go to him and see if we could pick up where we stopped. And you said hopefully. He said yes, we talked, we kissed, it was all perfect. He met my parents last night, and tomorrow my parents are meeting his, she said, looking out the window. That sounds like it is moving fast, you said. Maybe you should slow down. I think that sometimes, Ibara refocused her gaze on you. But if I am being honest, I don't want to. I want to be swept off my feet. I want the whirlwind. I want to be with him. You know certain things sometimes, and I know he is what I want. You know me, Ibara, I am impulsive as they come sometimes. You paused. I just don't want to see you hurt. I understand, but, honestly, I have been so lonely for so long that I didn't realize it till I met him. Ibara smiled. I know it could be that I have never felt this way before, and because it is all new, I am just wrapped up in it all, but is that so bad? I get to fall in love once, and it is forever. No, it isn't. It sounds very romantic, you responded. Naive but still. I am naive when it comes to this kind of thing, Ibara said. But I know what I want, and what I want is him. Then don't let him go, you said with a smile. You finished her cinnamon roll and left the office. She paused and looked at Ibara, their sidekick for so many years, and for the first time, she didn't see a young girl. Instead, she saw a woman coming into her own. They all have to grow up sometime, she whispered as she walked out. Mission flirt. Izuku was walking back from doing a delivery around the corner when a very familiar voice called his name. He immediately braced for impact. Izuku. Beautiful periwinkle hair, blue eyes, and honestly, a fantastic bust collided with him, making him stumble, but he caught her and hugged her tight. Neja, what are you doing here? He said. I came to flirt with you. She said, nuzzling her cheek against him. I don't think Mirio would like that, he said, laughing. Really? Why are you here? Come on, I will feed you lunch. It is so good to see you. I did come to flirt with you, that was the mission, she said, holding onto his arm while they walked back to the shop. I am so confused, he said. Well, the girls are super protective of Ibara, and they are worried that you may just try to get another notch in your belt, Neja began, so Set was going to send some girl to hit on you and see what you would do, so I smacked her upside the back of the head, told her not cool and that I would handle this myself. Well, thank you, he said, confused. How are you? How is Mirio and Tamaki? Mirio is doing great. He works a lot, but you know how he is, she giggled. Tama is doing well. He just went on assignment with Froppy. They are going out to sea for a few months. Is everything okay? Izuku said worried. Just fine, nothing they can't handle, Neja giggled. Their cases just happened to coincide. How is Eri? Doing good, he replied as they walked into the shop. She is going to be sad she missed you, though. I can stay until she gets home from school. I haven't had my unicorn refill in a long time. Neja took a deep whiff of all the smells before taking a seat at the counter. So, how do you feel about her? Izuku paused. There was a rough spot, but now, the sky is the limit. I like her, Neja, I mean a lot. Good, Izuku. I am happy for you. Neja Hado, how dare you not come give me a hug? Inko yelled as she walked out of the kitchen. I told her you were back there, Mom, but she said she didn't want a hug from you, Izuku teased. Neja immediately looked like a deer in the headlights, her lower lip quivering. He never said that, Mama Inko, she whined. He said that you were out and wouldn't be back until tomorrow and that you had Eri with you. That monster, Inko said, looking at Izuku, shocked. Neja nodded her head up and down. When Inko opened his arms, Neja flew over the counter and landed in the woman's embrace. She turned and stuck her tongue out at Izuku and snuggled in. Izuku and Neja. After Neja got her Inko charge, they retreated to his office. They had become acquainted during the overhaul raid. Neja had been part of the assault team, and Mirio had been about to be shot by a quirk bullet, but Izuku took the shot instead. It was at that point the two became friends. Izuku liked Mirio. He was so genuine and a good hero. It wasn't a surprise that he had become the #1 hero in the country. What had cemented it was how Mirio and Neja were with Eri. They had been instrumental in helping Eri find her smile and supporting him in court when he petitioned to take Eri in. They helped him deal with his breakup with Hina, but Neja had encouraged him to open the coffee shop. He was even at their wedding. Neja and Mirio were on the list of people he would commit crimes for. She smiled as he gushed about Ibara. They had been in school simultaneously but were a few years apart. I hope it works out for you, Izuku, Neja hugged him. The door to the office burst open, and standing there, slightly disheveled, stood Eri. The screech left Izuku deafened for a few minutes, and he promptly was forgotten about. He didn't pout much. Neja left later with a box of pastries under her arm and a spring in her step. Hina Hiro. She stared at the picture of Neja Hado holding onto Izuku's arm. She ground her teeth and crumpled up the photo, throwing it away. She couldn't afford to destroy another monitor. Neja and Mirio, who had stood up in court and supported Izuku taking Eri in, had provided character testimony. Without them, it was entirely possible that Eri would have been taken away, and then she could have had Izuku back. She and Izuku had met in school. He was an outcast due to his quirkless nature, and she was due to her young appearance. Once, though, word circulated about yes, she was, in fact, their age, and it was due to her quirk that she looked so young that some of the boys began to approach her. At first, she was happy that she was being included, but when their intentions began to manifest, it was, to say the least, less than ideal. She pulled away, but that didn't stop the rumors of the lowly slut. Hina decided to try to become invisible, and in doing so, she met someone else who was invisible, Izuku. She was vulgar to him when they first met. It was easier to cultivate the image of being a bitch to keep people away. He apologized for sitting at her table in the library, picked up his bag, and moved away. The look in his eyes was like she kicked a puppy. To make matters worse, she had sat down at his table. It didn't take long to figure out this was the quirkless kid. She watched him move through the halls. It was almost like he was a ghost. No one bothered him, and he seemed happy with that. It started simple enough, a simple conversation in the library about a project. Soon, more questions, then, like everything, it blossomed. Friendship grew into more romantic feelings. It was the summer after graduation. They had gone hiking, and she confessed. He sputtered and stammered about how he was quirkless, but she pulled him down and kissed him. It stopped his muttering. Hina fell in love, and he went on to university, and she joined the commission. Everything was great. He asked her to marry him in their second year, and she said yes. They were each other's first in everything. He was so tender with her on their first night together. She didn't think that life could get any better. Then it happened, Eri. When he returned, he was different and wanted to adopt the girl and be her father. However, Hina thought he was crazy to consider that option. She explained to him that the girl needed help beyond what he could provide. Hina also cautioned him that the girl was broken, might never be fixed, and dangerous. Mr. Rogi, her supervisor, had warned her about how unstable and dangerous the girl, Eri, was. Mr. Rogi had advised that it would be in Eri's and Izuku's best interest if he did not adopt her. Being close to the situation, Hina felt it was her responsibility to make him understand the gravity of the situation. She went to work to get him to understand, but he wouldn't listen. Then she comes in and sees that bitch Mei Hatsum in his arms, her body pressed up against him, her arms around him, holding him way too damn close. Hina saw red. How could Izuku do this to her, cheat on her? He tried to deny it, telling her she was wrong, but she knew what she saw. It was simple, restricted material, signed by Mei, unauthorized creations, and unapproved expenses. She was going to destroy that homewrecker and make her life a living hell. She offered to forgive him and take him back. All he had to do was see reason. She felt he was almost there, ready to comply, to give up Eri to the commission. Then Mirio Togata and Neja, fucking, Hado, that goddamn airhead was cleverer than Hina would have ever believed. She cleared Mei, got Izuku away from her, and helped him figure out what to do. Exposed a slight dalliance, Hina had to get back at Izuku. She supplied information to the boss, doing her best to paint Izuku as unfit, but Neja Hado counted everything that fucking bitch. Once everything was exposed, Izuku demanded his ring back. He couldn't understand that she was doing what was best for him. He just needed to listen to her. He needed to be protected from himself, and Hina would do that. He just needed time to come around. She would ensure he had the time. This Vine was proving to be troublesome. Dinner with the parents, the two of them sneaking into her agency at odd hours. Maybe Hina needed to get a camera in Vine's office. She had given Vine an excellent solution to walk away. Now, she would have to be more forceful. This needed to be dealt with. She sent out a quick command to have Izuku under surveillance for the time being and fabricated a report about him being a possible target for a criminal attack. All in a day work. Hina arrived at the office with a bag over her shoulder and a cup of coffee in her hand. The report from the previous night was simple: he had been home all night. She was still in the process of waking up. She had been called in early. It wasn't unusual. It could have something to do with a case she had been assigned the other day. After setting her things down in her office, she went to the conference room. She expected her supervisor, but she was not expecting to see Toru Hagakure, Hawks, the pro-hero Phantom Thief, and the head of security, Mr. Smith. Am I in the right conference room? Hina asked as her heart rate increased. Any meeting with the assistant director would occur in the upper floor conference room. You are, Toru said sweetly. Please take a seat. Hina sat down across from the powerhouse group sitting before her. How can I help you, assistant director? First, you can tell me what you thought you were doing. Toru said, her voice rich with menace. Ma'am, Izuku Midoriya, Toru said. Hina was about to speak when Hawks raised his hand. Hawks lifted a brown file box, setting it on the table. Before you continue with every lie you were about to speak, I would think long and hard about what you were about to say. He pulled a file from the box. You did an amazing job of covering your tracks, but there is one place you can't hide it from: accounting. Toru stood up. I received a phone call about a member of this commission running their operation out of this building. Not only are they actively interfering in the hero community, sending people out on missions, ordering unnecessary surveillance, illegal wiretapping, breach of privacy, and most important of this agency's fucking trust. Toru walked around the table towards Hina. She tossed the file towards the scared woman, its contents spilling onto the table. All because you were fucking dumped. Ma'am, Hina began to say. This agency is still recovering from the actions of the previous regime and my actions, Hawks said. We cannot have the trust we are trying to build not only in the hero community, but the public as well be compromised by you and your crusade. Do you understand the level of damage this could have done if it was to come out through other means of the resources and misuse of power you have used? You have lied and manipulated other pro-heroes into following up on your actions. Filed felonious and false reports in an attempt to get an outstanding member of our support team fired if not imprisoned, Phantom added. We have a signed complaint from King Explosion, Vine, Kriti, Battlefist, and Mei Hatsume. There are no words that can come out of your mouth, Muzhiro, to explain or justify these actions, Toru said as she stood behind Hina and stared at the evidence. Was it worth it? Was it worth risking the future of this agency so you could keep tabs on an ex-boyfriend and make his life difficult? Is that what love is to you? Muz Togakure, Hina stared at everything. There was nothing she could say or do. All the evidence was stacking up faster than she could think of any lie to counter what they were saying. Stand up, Toru ordered. In a haze, Hina rose to her feet. Hina hero, you are at this moment relieved of your duties. Furthermore, you are under arrest for misuse of funds, illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy, fabrication of evidence, hindering a federal investigation, fraud, and conspiracy. As a result, I turn you over to Phantom Thief, who will take you into custody. Hina began to cry. The screen lit up in the conference room. She was her team being taken into custody as well. You destroyed not only your life but theirs, Hawks said. If they are lucky, they will just lose their jobs. Get her out of here, Toru said as Hina was led out in cuffs. Once Toru and Hawks were in the room, how did you find all this so quickly? Toru asked. I know where to look, Hawks replied. I know where the secrets go to rest. Thankfully, we don't have things going on like they used to. This is bad, but it could have been so much worse. Some still want things to return to the old ways. Then we have to make sure that doesn't happen now, don't we? Toru replied. Nice ring, by the way, Hawks said with a smile as they walked out. Itsuka and Mei. So, is everything okay? Itsuka said, sitting across from her girlfriend. Lover. Mei took a deep breath. Well, first, I want to define what we are. What are we then? Itsuka said. I know what I want us to be. I want you, Mei, to be my girlfriend. Mei smiled and looked relieved. Good, that is what I also want. Itsuka smiled, taking Mei's hand. I want more, though. What do you mean? I want to get a place, have my shop on the bottom floor, an apartment above it where we live together. Itsuka looked surprised. I also want a family, not right now, Mei said quickly. But I want to have kids, get married, have a life. and I want that all with you. Okay, Itsuka said with a tender smile and shrug. That is it. Okay. Itsuka nodded. May, except the other people in my class, no one knows me like you do. I don't have to hide my flaws or pretend about things because I know about them all. I want to be with you, I have liked you for years, why would I stop now when I see you racing to the future with everything I want for myself? Good, I think I found a place, May said with a smile. Would you come look at it with me? I would love to, Itsuka said with a smile. Dinner. Shinoru and Shinko were having a lovely time talking with Inko as Ibara and Izuku were in the kitchen stealing kisses when no one was looking. Eri giggled as she walked out of the kitchen after catching them in the act. Dinner will be ready in 5 minutes, she said as she set the table. Shinko and Shinoru liked the home, it was precisely that, a home. It was lived in, warm, inviting. Inko was so warm it just made the whole experience more accessible. The two matriarchs were getting to know each other and discussing their concerns for their children and the budding relationship in the future. Ibara and Izuku were in bliss, they didn't know that cooking together could be so lovely. It helped that they had to slip past each other, the incidental contact, hands brushing against each other. When he placed his hands on her hips to move past her, the electricity was evident. She giggled when he looked around and stole a kiss, she boldly stole one back. They were in a more passionate embrace when a giggle and camera click made them jump apart like a couple of teenagers. Eri stood there with a grin. After dinner, they sat around the table playing card games and laughing as embarrassing stories from their past were shared by their respective mothers. Eri was having a good time. She watched her dad, the smile he had, the way they would hold hands under the table, or the way either of their fingers would reach out so that they were in contact. She wasn't the only one to notice. Of course, the parents also noticed it. It encouraged them to keep dreaming of tomorrow. At the end of the night, Inko and Eri walked Ibara's parents downstairs, giving Izuku and Ibara a moment alone. He pulled her tight and quickly found her lips. She met his passion, opening her mouth to invite him in. They stood in the living room kissing for a few minutes before they broke apart. He took her hand and walked her downstairs, the parents doing their best not to give the children knowing looks. Ibara was on her way home when she received a message from Toru. Toru, sorry you had to deal with that. It has been handled. Ibara, thank you, Toru. A similar message and response came a little later from Katsuki. Izuku took a deep breath, he knew what Hina had done was wrong. He didn't know how much trouble she had gotten into, he just knew that she wasn't going to be interfering in his life anymore or those of his friends. Instead of letting himself feel bad, he opened his phone and began looking for a weekend getaway, for two. That will be all for this video, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos, goodbye.